Welcome to the Destiny Church Tees Valley podcast. As you listen, it is our prayer that you are transformed by audacious faith, inspiring hope, and extravagant love.
Days like this, and I really want to commend Jonathan and Kath and the team here for making room for a day like this. It gives us a wee bit of a chance to slow the text right down and sort of dig a wee bit deeper, because Sundays are great and our small groups are great, but sometimes we don't always get the chance to dig into stuff the way we would love to, and that's just because we're doing other things and other things are happening. So a day like this allows us to really dig in together, and it can really, really be helpful. So well done, and again, thank you, genuinely, I mean that, thank you for coming and investing in yourself in this context. So we're going to move on to the second temptation, the third area. All right, so we've looked at identity in the first session, the idea of person. Then we looked at the Word of God, the idea of promise, and those two things come under scrutiny in the gap. Here's the third idea that comes under, and we'll read it again from Luke chapter 4, just the second temptation. So we won't read the whole passage together, but it's Luke chapter 4, and picking it up from verse 5. And it says this: "The devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to them, I will give you all their authority and splendor, for it has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to. So if you worship me, it will all be yours." Jesus answered, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Now, probably of the three temptations, this is the one that looks like the most obvious answer. You know, this is a very simple case of the devil asking Jesus to bow down. That's a ridiculous idea. Jesus would never do that. And Jesus pushes back by quoting again the Bible. But let me remind you of a little idea we're trying to encourage you to think about. When we think about the temptations of Jesus, don't just think about what the devil is asking, but look at how Jesus is responding. What Jesus is responding to is the issue. All right? And if you're prepared to dig into Jesus on this, there might be a little bit of a aha moment that we maybe wouldn't have seen if we just look at what the devil is saying. So we get this real interesting moment. I will give you, the devil says. So before we move on into Jesus, this has created a little bit of a debate amongst scholars. Can the devil actually give to Jesus what he's offering? I mean, even if Jesus didn't want to pick this up, is it an actual real temptation? Because some would ask, the world wasn't the devil's to give. So it's a very, very interesting issue. And in fact, some would say it wasn't his to give, yet others would say, and I would be of this opinion, that actually was his to give. There's a sense in which, after the fall, humans abdicated their authority to rule the earth on behalf of God. And in many ways, they allowed a spiritual authority to come on the earth, in terms of allowed Satan, allowed our enemy to have a measure of authority and influence that he was never originally allowed to have. So the Bible would teach us, if you follow the sort of trajectory of the story of how Lucifer, this magnificent archangel, fell from heaven and became what we now refer to as the devil or the accuser, that actually that trajectory started with him wanting to be like God. In fact, Isaiah talks about these 5 I wills of the devil. I will ascend to heaven. I will ascend to the throne of God. I will take the throne of God. And at the heart of it is this idea that it's like Lucifer is trying to take a position. He's trying to become someone he's not in order to do something he was never designed to do. And again, it's back to that idea we touched on earlier on, that our identity is linked to our destiny. Once you become confused about who you are, you will become confused and potentially derailed on what you're here to do. So his role as this archangel was to help and assist God in whatever God wanted to do. But he stepped over that role and into something he was not. Now, he couldn't get what he wanted from God. So the story would go something like this. The trajectory then is when God makes humans the pinnacle of his image on earth, listen, to do on earth what he wants to do, then this is a natural opportunity for Satan, for the accuser, to step into that relationship and try and take the authority, the purpose that humans were given, a purpose he originally wanted. You with me? So he wanted to take God's place. He wanted to rule. He wanted to be the authority. God wouldn't let him have that, and he's as it were, kicked out of the presence of God, for want of a better expression. Then when humans come along and God says to those humans, rule the earth, subdue the earth, and fill the earth, that sounds like what Lucifer wanted in the first place. And so what he does is he comes at our first parents in order to get that purpose. So there could be an argument that says when our parents, our first parents, said yes to him instead of saying yes to God, they gave away their authority to rule the earth on behalf of God, and he took that authority. Paul, we might want to argue, picks up this image by saying, the God of this world has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. So there is a sense in which there's an authority on the earth that is an authority of darkness that we, the church, are now fighting against. And ultimately, when Jesus returns, he will finish that all off. So, could the devil give this to Jesus or not? Well, my argument might be, if he couldn't, then it wasn't a real proper temptation. So, if this wasn't a real offer, Jesus could have simply turned around and said, what are you talking about? Give me the kingdoms of the world. Who do you think you are? You can't give me that. But the fact that Jesus doesn't swat that away might suggest that the devil had a measure of authority to give to Jesus what he was offering, even though it sounds like a preposterous idea. Now, we could argue about that all day, and everyone will have a different opinion on it, but I didn't want to rush past in case you're looking at that going, what? That's worth a thought, and there is an argument that would back that sort of idea up. But Jesus doesn't actually respond to that, which is really interesting. He doesn't respond specifically to the offer. Instead, Jesus again quotes the Torah, or quotes Moses. This time, he's quoting a bit in the Torah, not chapter 8, where we were before, but he's quoting chapter 6. And remember, Deuteronomy is his favorite book. If you went on stats alone, Deuteronomy is his favorite book in Moses, so he likes this very, very much. And he quotes chapter 6, verse 13. But remember what we did in the session before? We're following the breadcrumbs. So Jesus is not just giving us a text with an address. He's introducing us to an idea. There's a truth behind this quote that he wants us to get and he wants us to understand. So what we're going to do, we're going to follow the breadcrumbs. And so we're going to read 5 verses, the verses around this quote, and we'll see what it has to say. Is that okay? So it'll keep us awake anyway, reading the text together. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 10. And it says this, when the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers. Now, isn't this interesting? Little link. When we read chapter 8, the context was bringing you into the land. All right? So this idea that God was bringing the people into something, this idea is repeated again. So the bit that Jesus is quoting has again this idea of God bringing you somewhere, doing something for you. Is that a coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe there's a wee connector there to this. Maybe this is exactly what Satan's driving at. He's trying to stop Jesus entering the purpose of the Father. So we get this lovely little connector. So verse 10. When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to give you, a land with large, flourishing cities you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves you did not plant, then you will eat. Then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord. Note this. This is the killer now. This is the moment. Who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Fear the Lord your God. That's the quote. That's the bit Jesus quotes. Fear the Lord your God and serve him only, and take your oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, the gods of the peoples around you. Why? For the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God, and his anger will burn against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the land. Now note that. Can you almost hear where that's going? Maybe if you're following that with me, you can see what's happening here. So to help me and you unpack this a wee bit, let's look a little bit closer at Deuteronomy, at what might be going on here, and why Jesus says what he says. So in the context of Deuteronomy, Jesus quotes this bit, and it's a really fascinating quote in the context of the temptation. Remember, what the temptation seems to be is, bow down and I will give you. Isn't that the heart of the quote? Bow down and I will give you. So Jesus then quotes a bit of the Torah where it says this. Look at this. Look at this really closely. When the Lord your God brings you into a land he swore to your fathers, a land with flourishing cities you did not build, houses with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells you did not dig, vineyards and olive groves you did not plant. Be careful not to forget, that you do not forget the Lord, because he's the one who gave that to you. That's the inference, okay? And then it goes on to say, fear the Lord your God and serve him only. So, here's what the devil is saying to Jesus. Bow down to me and I will give. But when Jesus replies, here's what he's saying. No, I don't need to bow down to you to get, because I have already been given something. I've already received a promise from God. When he quotes from the Torah, here's what he's saying. The Father, God, has already given me something. I've already understood that if I will stay on his course, he will give me everything that I need to have. And he even quotes this passage where he's saying, referring back to the children of Israel, they got stuff they didn't even ask for. They got houses they did not build. They got vineyards they did not plant. They got stuff that actually, technically speaking, they shouldn't have got. Why did they get it? Because God gave it to them. Why did God give it to them? Because they feared him. They worshipped him. They stayed close to him. They stayed online with him. And so here's the devil saying to Jesus, bow to me and I will give. And Jesus' response simply seems to be a pushback to the idea, of course I'm not going to bow to you, because I wouldn't bow to any other God. But Jesus is saying more than that. He's saying, I don't need what you are offering, because I already have what the Father is giving. So this is not simply the devil trying to get Jesus to bow down, and it's not simply Jesus not bowing down. This is an issue to do with purpose. And the devil is trying to get Jesus to move away from what God has given him. Do you see that? So it's not just, it looks on surface like, bow down, I want you to worship me. And of course, then that feels like the obvious response. But it's deeper than that. He's saying, I want to give you something. And Jesus is saying, I don't want what you're offering me, because the Father has already given me something. And therefore, his response to that is, I won't move away from that. I'm going to stay close to the purpose of God for my life. Now, the final bit gets added to this, and he says, in the context of the passage, it says, do not follow other gods. Why? Well, because The Lord your God is a jealous God. But it goes further than that. And the suggestion is, if you go the route of other gods, then the purpose for which God has designed for you, he will remove. He'll take that away from you. He'll, in fact, the feeling is he will judge you for it. So there's this idea, it's not just about worshiping God and not worshiping God. It's about diverting yourself away from the God-given purpose for your life and taking another direction, taking another route, moving in another way. Are you with me on that? So now if we step back and apply that to our gap idea, this wilderness idea, then it really makes sense. It's a really powerful idea. Because when you're in the gap, you're tempted to take shortcuts. When you're waiting, you get a wee bit more desperate. Now, that might be just me, but I don't think it is. I think it's pretty human, that. So God spoke. Oh, we're excited. This is amazing. Fantastic. We're here, and we're going somewhere. We're heading somewhere. But somewhere in this gap moment or moments, now, it's not happening. It's not working. We're not exactly sure when these temptations happen. But let's imagine this temptation happens in day 21 of a brutal encounter. He's hot during the day. He's freezing cold at night. He's on his own. He doesn't have human community to help him. He's literally on his own. In fact, the Gospels tell us that angels came and ministered to him in the context of this. So he's actually in this brutal environment, relentless. Imagine, this is not happening in day 1. Imagine this is happening like day 21, day 25. Now, I've been on a 40-day fast, and I want to tell you, when you get into day 15, 16, 17, it's like, it's pure psychology. It's in your brain. Because your body reaches a stage at that point where you're not hungry. It stops being hungry at that point. And it's all down to what's going on in your brain. It's all down to, do I want to keep going or do I want to quit? And it's not because you're hungry you want to quit. It's because you just want to eat. All right? So it's amazing. After 3 or 4 days of a fast, you stop feeling hungry. Some of you have experienced this. You've literally done this. So then eating is about what you're thinking, not about what you need. Are you with me? So imagine you're in the middle of this gap. The hunger's not there, so the food issue's not the issue. But of course, now what's being put under pressure is, I can offer you a shortcut out of this journey. Instead of having to do the whole 40-day thing, I can offer you a shortcut out of this, and you can get something that looks as good, but easier. Yeah, are you with me? And one of the great temptations in our gap moment is that under pressure, we look for the shortcut. Or under pressure, we change direction. Or under pressure, we back away from the purpose to which God has called us. And that's a huge, huge idea. That's one of the ideas that the devil is after in my life and in your life. If he can divert us. Now I want you to notice this. Look at this. The diversion wasn't 1,000,000 miles away from what God was offering. So ultimately, Jesus will get the kingdoms of the world. Ultimately, Jesus will save the nations of the world. Ultimately, one day, the nations will look to him and worship him. And so there's a sense in which what the devil is offering is not dissimilar to what God has already asked him to do. But you've got this challenge of a shortcut, an easier route to the purpose. Here's what I've discovered in my journey in the wilderness. There are no shortcuts to anywhere that's actually worth going. All right? And there are some moments of great frustration. You know, last night I sat on the M1 for an hour, just stuck. All right? There was traffic works. 4 lanes went into one. and I had literally nowhere to go. Now, sometimes when I'm driving my car, I've got this clever, intelligent sat-nav, and the sat-nav will literally fire a message up to me and say, the road ahead is closed, or there's traffic ahead. Would you like to save some time? You'll have to go an extra 5 miles, but you'll save this. And it literally asks you a question. It comes up on the screen. And within about 15 seconds, you've got to answer yes or no. If you don't touch the screen, it keeps you on the same journey. And of course, everything within us wants the quickest, easiest, fastest route. And why not? Why not? Why not? There's nothing wrong with that at all. But here's what I've discovered with my sat-nav. Sometimes the fastest route is not the best route. So, John, what are you talking about? Of course it is. No, it isn't. I have a Kia Sportage. So it's not a small car. It's not a huge car, but it's a chunky car. Okay? And I've had moments where I followed my sat-nav along the fastest route down tractor pathways. Now, I've learned to work it out because I can spot, is it an A road, a B road? If there's no letter in front of I ignore it. I ignore it. I literally ignore, because it's taking me down tractor trails that if a tractor comes the other way, or even a slightly larger than normal human comes the other way, I'm not getting through that path. Now, what the sat-nav's trying to do is find the quickest route. What I've discovered in my spirituality is the quickest is not always the best. Some things only happen because of process. And you know, as Pentecostals, we love and believe in the suddenly, instant, dynamic moments where God shows up and just does stuff. And we continue to believe that. We preach that. We go for that. We want that. But I've discovered that in between those big suddenly moments, there is a lot of just normal process that won't be rushed. Yes, my oldest daughter is expecting her and Dan's first baby in December, and our first grandchild, and it's a wonderful experience, but that baby will not be rushed. So if things go as are normally expected, this is going to take 9 months of cooking. And then a bit of pushing. Bit of pushing at the end. Yes? But 9 months of cooking. Now, we know there are exceptions to that. We know sometimes babies are born earlier, etc., etc. But we also know, and please forgive me, I don't want to upset anybody or use an inappropriate example, but we know if a baby is born too early, a lot of effort has to go in to sustaining that life until it reaches the stage it would have been had the baby cooked the normal length. Are you with me? So please, I hope it doesn't upset anybody who's had that experience, but I use that only to illustrate. If some things get rushed, they're not ready. And I've met beautiful people over the years, and they're in a desperate rush to get to the end. And grown up Christianity and spirituality understands some things don't rush. You just can't rush them. And the more we try to rush them, the more mistakes we're going to make. We're going to get ourselves in trouble. And we're looking for speed instead of understanding. Actually, there are moments when the Lord will offer us a shortcut or a faster route. We'll take that. But there are other moments where God will actually take us, not the longest route, but the right route. You with me? And that is so important as a spiritual principle. I do get nervous today, deeply nervous, and I don't want to sound like an out-of-date, old, sort of cranky person, because it's not who I am. But I do get nervous about a generation today that's driven by the instant. It wants instant for everything. Information, education, growth, development. Now, and I'm being very, very generalistic there. That's not everybody of a younger generation at all. But I think there's a drive of quick. Let's get this happening quickly. Dan's here, and Sam's have you just graduated? No, Sam's still in Bible college. And I've had to contend over the years in being involved with Bible college, people telling me, things like Bible colleges are no longer required. We want online courses, quick this, do this. Well, I totally get that, but some things can't be learned in a rush. Some things actually have to cook. Some things you have to reflect. You don't just get Google instant answers on certain things. The Bible is not Google. So Google, you just punch in, how long's a caterpillar, and you'll get 15,000 websites on our view. Well, that's just giving you information. And thank God, information's great. It's wonderful. But we are probably the most over-informationed generation, including me now. I'm part of this. We're the most over-information generation, and in some issues, most underdeveloped. Information doesn't mean smart. Information doesn't mean mature. Information doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about. I've met children as young as 11 who know about sex because they've Googled it, or worse. Doesn't mean they know about sex. All right? I mean, they can talk the talk. You can get information, but that doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. It doesn't. So spirituality can fall into this trap. We're trying to rush it all the time. And I've been a follower of Jesus since I was 8, and there's some stuff I'm only really now getting. And that's not to discourage you, that's to encourage you. But John, my goodness, when are we going to understand all this? Well, probably never. But we're pilgrims. We're journeying. We're walking towards something. So here's the devil doing what probably in 99% of cases are going to work on a human. Here's a shortcut. I can give you what I think God's offering you, but I can give it to you quicker. And Jesus steps back from that, and he reminds him that God's already given me this, and I'm not going to go for the shortcut. I'm going to stay where I am in this context. Now, let me just clear something up which might be a concern to you. In Luke's Gospel, the quote is, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. And in Deuteronomy, it's fear the Lord your God. John, is there a contradiction? Well, no, not really. So one of the challenges we have is the Old Testament bit of the Bible is essentially written in Hebrew. The New Testament bit of the Bible is written in Greek. And sometimes the Greek language can't grab fully the idea of the original quote. This happens on a number of occasions. And sometimes it'll give you what looks like a different word or a different nuance, but it's trying to capture the same idea. So the word worship here in Luke 4 is the idea of coming close to God with your adoration. Okay? It literally could be translated to kiss towards, to towards kiss. That's the idea. Whereas the word that's used in Deuteronomy is literally translated to fear or reverence. But in a Jewish worldview, it doesn't mean fear as in, oh my goodness, I'm terrified. It means give God his central place in your life. Same idea. So it's this idea of fearing God means I am placing him at the center of my world. I am reverencing his position. Okay? That's what it means to fear. It doesn't mean to hide in terror. It means to give God his proper place in your world. And of course, that's what worship is, right? Worship is me taking me off the throne of my life and putting God on it. Now, in modern church, one of the dangers is we hear the word worship and we think songs. We think words on a screen and a band. And of course, that is definitely wonderfully part of worship. But true worship is taking me, John Andrews, off the central place of my life, taking God and putting him in that central seat. That's worship. And that can happen on a Sunday morning when Faith and Kath are leading us in great songs. I'm literally doing that for a few glorious moments. I'm forgetting about all my stuff and me and what I need. And I'm just for 20 minutes of wonderful singing worship, I am focusing on him 100%. When I'm doing that, that's real worship. But that could also be at work, where I am taking me off the throne at work and I'm putting God there. That could happen in my marriage. That can happen in my family. So what I'm doing, what worship is the taking out of self from the central place, putting God there. All right? So there's no contradiction between the word fear in Hebrew and the word worship in Greek. They're grappling with the same idea. It's the idea of giving God his place. All right? So why is that important? Because at the heart of our journey, the devil wants to move us to a place of idolatry. Now, we hear a word like idolatry, and that's a pretty scary word, right? So what we don't mean by that is, I wouldn't expect anybody in this room to go home and sort of literally build an idol and put it on their mantelpiece and worship it. Because that's a physical expression of idolatry. Having an image and we bow down to it. And of course, God is very, very strong in his words to Moses, don't make any image of me. Don't bow down to an image. Why is God saying it? Because he's saying this. There's no image you can design that's getting close to me. So don't try. Don't try and make an image of me. And it's absolutely fascinating. This is a big idea for the Lord. Now, of course, it's not just the actual idea of an image. God understands this idea. Here's the problem with an image. We lean on what we see instead of leaning into what we know. That's why people love idolatry or icons or images and stuff like that. It's natural. We love pictures. We love stuff we can look at, touch, bow down to. There's something in humans love that stuff because it's physical, it's real, it feels comfortable. But the Lord is not wanting that, because he knows that the minute I make something that I think looks like him or something that helps me, I start to lean into that thing instead of leaning into him. Now, there's an even more subtle form of idolatry, and this is the worst form and the most easy form. I've never been tempted to make an image and bow down to it, but I have placed myself in the place where God sits. All right? Now, hold this idea with me. I know you're fighting the Kentucky Fried Chicken really well, so you're doing brilliant. We're nearly there. Now let's go back to this original idea of the devil, of Lucifer. His terrible moment of mistake was that he placed himself in the place of God. All right? So in other words, in that action, he created an idolatrous moment. He placed himself at the center of this moment, and therefore, as a result of that, he ended up going in a direction other than God wanted. So one of our great challenges in the gap is trusting the direction God is taking us in and not being tempted to push him off the seat and take the seat back. Do you hear me? It's a hard one now. To trust him. Trust him. He knows what he is doing. And there will be moments where it will feel like he's gone on holiday. There will be moments where it feels like, is God really on with this? And you will be tempted to take it back. You will be tempted to look for the shortcut. You will be tempted, please forgive me, to become the God of your own destiny. the captain of your own soul. Now, that's a cool little poem, to be the captain of your own destiny. It's garbage. We've got to reject this idea. We don't do well when we become the captains of our own destiny and the guardians of our own soul in that sense. We've got to allow God to be the captain of our destiny. So when I get edgy, I try to grab the wheel back. Lord, let me drive for a while. Yes? Let me drive for a while. Beth Ann's just passed her driving test. And she was under a bit of pressure because Elena passed hers first time. I'm glad you came. I've got loads of illustrations because of you. Elena passed her test first time. Simeon passed his first time. And Beth Ann was under pressure. Unspoken pressure, although her brother, really, he gave you a hard time about it. He kept reminding her, we all passed first time. How are you going to do? And remarkably, she passed first time in the middle of doing her A-levels as well. She did an amazing job. And she's actually a very good driver. She's doing great. But of course, she did some lessons with an instructor. And then she went out and did some lessons with her mom. Now, I made a decision not to take any of my kids out for lessons because I love them. And had I taken them out, they wouldn't have got to their test. My dad was a saint. I mean, my dad was the closest thing to Jesus I ever met. He was genuinely a most wonderful, wonderful man. And the only time I had a proper knockdown, drag-out fight with my dad was over a driving lesson. And I thought, if I can make a man like that angry, my children are not safe in the car with me. So I stayed away from that. So they went for their lessons with a proper Christian, i.e. their mother, and she guided them. And you know, when Beth Ann stepped into that car, just like Elena had to do and Simeon had to do, there's a big tension moment here. And the moment is this, and here's what it is. By the time they get in the car with their mum, they think they know how to drive. All right? So they've had a few lessons. Beth Ann's instructor said, you're really good. All right? That's cool. I get that, and I'm delighted with that. But they're now about to get in a car that doesn't have dual control. They're getting in a car that their mum owns. They think they already own it, but it's still their mum's. Right? So they're getting in the car with their mum. And there is a tension here because Beth Ann, 10 lessons under her belt, or however many, I think I know how to drive. But here's the challenge. Her mum really knows how to drive. And in order for Beth Ann to get in the car, or Elena to get in the car, or Simeon to get in the car with their mum, they've got to sort of agree to this principle. Whatever I say, you must do. No hesitation. Don't second guess me. Because I've no dual control. So I can't take control of the car off you. I have to trust you to do what I say. Do you know, that is such a powerful image of our spirituality. The God of the universe is letting you drive the car. On the condition that you do as he says. Now, where humans get it badly wrong is that we stop listening to the instructor. Literally, we stop listening to Torah. We stop listening to the instruction. We go, no, like I did with my dad. No, I know how to do this. And then we end up sometimes in a worse off place than we thought. And one of the human's greatest challenge is God's made us brilliant. But we must surrender our brilliance to his genius. And we must do that. It's one of the hardest things to do. And what the devil plays on brilliantly is your brilliance. He will use your brilliance to create idolatry in you, which takes you away from the genius of God. Are you with me? So he panders to my brilliance. And I go, yeah, I am brilliant. And then I start believing my own PR. And in that moment, I become God. And in that moment, I make terrible mistakes. So here's Jesus saying, no, I'm not going to step into that. I'm not going to become the captain of my own destiny. I'm worshiping the Lord. I'm fearing the Lord. I'm serving him only. Look at that. Jesus is saying, I'm driving the car, but I'm doing everything he tells me to do. In fact, he literally says that in John's Gospel. Everything the Father does, I do. Everything the Father says, I say. Wherever the Father goes, I go. It's like he's saying, I'm driving the car, but he's calling the shots. And this one's really powerful. You'll have to fight this every day. I have to fight my own temptation to be God every day of my life. My kids will tell you I am a bit of a control freak. And that is a challenge to me. Does that make sense to you? All right, we're nearly there. You're doing amazing. Independence is the second thing. Idolatry leads to independence. So what naturally happens is if I take control of the car and ignore the instructor, it leads me to a place of independence from God. And independence from God always leads to disaster. So listen to what Jesus is saying. I refuse to be independent from God. That's what he's saying. I will serve him only. I will worship him. I will fear him. Here's what he's saying. I will not follow this track, because if I follow this track, it is a track where I become the boss and he's the boss. If I follow this track, I operate independently from him, and I'm not going to do that. So that's why he says, worship the Lord your God. Fear him, give him his place, proper place in the car, and serve him only. Don't operate independently from him. Yep. And here's why. Because we can only truly possess what he has given us. Now you can take anything you want. But in spiritual terms, we can only possess what he has given. John the Baptist said, everything I have, I've only got because the Father's given it to me. He understood this principle. And great men and women of God understand, I can reach out and take anything I want, but I can only possess what he's given. Back to the Garden of Eden, one will hear these echoes all the way around. Eve reached out and took. She took something that wasn't given. If God gives it, you'll never have to take it. You receive it. If you're taking it because we want it, we're taking it. But when we're in the purpose of God, you never have to take it. You receive it. It's coming to you. You're possessing it in the sense that you're entering into it, but you're not taking it. It's being given to you. So it's back to that idea. Houses you didn't build. Vineyards you didn't plant. What's God saying? I am empowering you to possess something that you can now receive. What's the devil saying? I want to give you, I want to take God's place to give you that. And Jesus is having to make the choice between reaching out and taking something or trusting the Father and receiving something. That makes sense to you? Last we thought, and we're done. We can go beyond in our world by staying within. Here's the wonderful, glorious irony of this temptation. The devil says, bow down and I will give you. And today, Jesus has a name above every name. Jesus is sitting in the highest spiritual authority in the universe. One day, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Jesus got more than the shortcut offered because he stayed within the purpose of God for his life. Humans get cheated by the devil because the devil makes us believe if I step out and do my thing, I can get more for me. But God wants to teach us if we stay within and do his thing, we will get more in the long run than we ever would have got had we gone on our own. Does that make sense? I sat with a lady yesterday on a plane, not a Christian. We had an amazing talk about Jesus. And I said this to her. I still pinch myself at the life I had, the life I surrendered to God. And she was like mesmerized by this language. And I talked to her about the fact that surrendering your life to Jesus doesn't make it smaller. It makes it bigger. And she was mesmerized by this, asking me loads of questions, because she'd never heard this conversation before. And I said, I've got to do things, I've got to go places, I've got to experience things that I don't think I ever could have experienced had I stepped out of his plan and tried to do my own plan. Stay within the purpose. The gap will put that under pressure. You'll panic. You'll look for the shortcut. You'll look for the exit. You'll try to take hold of the wheel. Don't do it. Don't do it. Trust the purpose of the Father. Trust the purpose that God's called you to. Destiny Church, trust what God has said. Trust the direction you're in. Don't panic. Don't grab the wheel. Stay within and you'll go further. And so, to help us process the liminal space, we need to know what he wants, his purpose. When we know his purpose, then actually it helps us to walk in the space in between. Amen?
If you would like to know more, please visit us at www.thedestinychurch.co.uk.